let's get into it. All these story times that I have are based off of my own spiritual experience, my work that I have done with others throughout the years. We're all a piece of the puzzle. We're all co-creators. That's what I'm about. Let's talk about it. I have, since the beginning of my spiritual awakening, have been an advocate for reptilians. In the way of this, that everybody's like, they're horrible, they're bad, they're horrible, they're the worst, they're blah, 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 blah. They're the reason for this, and they're the reason for that, and they're the reason for that. My thing is, monsters are not born, they're created. So every time someone says, like, a reptilian is an asshole, I'm like, what made them an asshole? Because even if you look at superhero movies, the good guys are the good guys until they're killing the bad guys, then how are they not the bad guys? Even in Harry Potter, I'm like, who pissed Voldemort off? What the fuck, man? I'm a trauma healer looking to heal the trauma. Period. Also, as a past life healer, I run into people who have reptilian lives all the fucking time. Constantly. And I've even had people who I have a session with them, when they find out they're a reptilian, they freak the fuck out, they get all sad, and they're like, oh my god, am I the bad guy? That's fucked up! Why? Because spiritual society tells you that you're a bad guy if you're a reptilian? No, fuck off. That's not true at all. Hating a species because of their species is fucking racist, you dumb bitches. I mean that in the nicest way possible. Everybody always looking for some kind of bad guy. Chill. We all have the potential to be the bad guy. Every fucking single one of us. And if you're not willing to look at the fact that you could be a bad guy, you're part of the fucking problem, and you need to heal your trauma. Sorry, I cussed a lot and I yelled. My bad. But I mean it, man. I mean it. Back to the story time. There's someone that I worked with that was part of the bird species. Like if you go back to the planet Sirius, they're a bird. And in Egypt, they're a bird. They're part of the bird species. And I'm part of the water species. I'm like an octopus, a squid, that kind of thing. Well, this person that I used to work with would not want anything to do with the reptilians, didn't want to help heal it, and I was like, hey, if you don't like them, maybe we should look at it. They also were not a big fan of cats, and there was a cat species also, Lyrans, and the birds are Lyrans too. That's a whole nother topic. I'll go into it in the series though. And this bird person that I worked with hated cats and was not, like, hated reptilians. And I was like, dude, if you hate something, you probably need to heal it. Let's go look at it. Let's go heal it. No, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. For years. When I do puzzle work, I think of it like a Rubik's Cube. So, like, we make one side green, and then we have to go back to it, because by making the side blue, we put yellow and orange spots on the green. Like, it's a constant moving puzzle until we get it all straightened. So about a month ago, the person that I'm going to call the rest of the story Grumpy Bird. Grumpy Bird and I worked on a puzzle. They finally were guided to work on it on their own. That's the thing with them. They have to see it for themselves. I cannot push them. I do try, but I can't push them, and that's okay. So they saw on the planet Sirius, and a lot of you think of it as a constellation, but on the planet Sirius, the neutrals, there were birds and there were cats, and then there were neutrals. And I was like, I'm a neutral. I'm a water sign. And or not a water sign astrologically, but a water in Sirius. I knew right away when they were talking that I'm the neutral. That's what I do. I neutralize. So pretty much the birds had a voice at the table. The cats had a voice at the table. And I was a neutral to keep it, like, to balance it. Like, they're right and they're right, so let's listen. Well, usually that worked out at this, like, council table. And when I say I mean my oversoul. So it could be you. It does not have to be me. That's a long topic, but that's what I mean by I. This is the part that I worked on, but I'm not the only one that's part of this oversoul, if that makes any sense. And it might not, and that's okay. But at this juncture, it was like a little council, and I would be at the table neutralizing. The head cat person would be at the table, and the head bird person would be at the table, or species. But the bird and the cats, they were not getting along. They could not make a decision, and I couldn't. So on this healing done on January 14th, I, being a representative of the water neutrals and working with Grumpy Bird, who's a representative of the birds on the planet Sirius, did a healing where we saw that the neutrals weren't being heard. They weren't a voice at the table. Remember, it was the birds getting a little loud and the cats getting a little loud, disagreement, and the neutrals were like, whoa, 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 we need balance here, we need balance here. So the neutrals took it upon themselves, because we're all co-creators, to create a species called reptilians. Water, air, the bird, earth, the cats, fire, the dragons, reptilians. The birds and the cats did not want the reptilians. They did not invite them, they did not ask them to be made, they didn't want anything to do with it. Even though we're co-creators, they didn't have a voice in the creation. And the neutrals overstepped a bit. So Grumpy Bird and myself went in and were able to heal the DNA strand. Since the DNA was pretty much just mine and Source that made the reptilians, we were able to change it. Mine being the water signs, not just mine as in me. And also, again, it doesn't matter who came first. We're all co-creators, and we all pretty much came at the same time. This is just the linear time aspect of, like, who came first kind of thing. The reptilians are just as much co-creators as we are, but they've been shitted on. They've been pushed aside and told they were not worthy and didn't have a voice, and they were angry about it. And also, because they have inner child healing, they were mad at the neutrals and the water signs too, because they never asked to be born. They never asked to be treated this way. I mean, you know how in like so many movies the villain is either the best friend that was overlooked, or the villain is, like, say in Incredibles, the little boy that was like, you're my hero, and he didn't want anything to do with him, and so the little boy grew up to be the fucking villain. And just like, it's the same concept. They were a co-creator that came from Source, just like the rest of us, but trauma from their creation brought out the anger and the death and the all the stuff. And some people will still look at them like they're evil. Not me. That's how I am. Trauma creates monsters. Period. Let's help heal the fucking monster. And that brings me to my session that I had this weekend. And that's when I made the little post that was like, oh yeah, I've got a story time to tell you guys. Every time I talk about this stuff, it reminds me of Horton Hears a Who. All of us waking up are the mayor, and we're also the elephant. So my session this weekend, I was working with an acting representative of the cats. And I was an acting representative for the water species. And I was texting with an acting representative of the bird species for the part that the birds needed to play. Because we don't heal without consent. We don't make collective decisions. We are co-creators. Everybody has a voice. We work with oversouls, or with an individual soul. So I was on the phone with the client, and I was telling them, I'm like, the water species, like the neutrals, they're going to make the reptilians. They're going to make a balance. It's going to happen. So either we need to heal it to where everybody's in agreement on making said balance, or we need to heal it to where the waters don't make that balance. Like, they don't make that fourth piece. They made it from Source, but it's still their DNA that they peeled off to make it. But it doesn't make, reptilians would still be an equal part of the puzzle. The cat representative and me being a water representative were completely on board and understood that we needed to make a fire element for the balance at the table, because there was not a balance at the table. It was air versus earth, and water was trying to keep the flow, and it wasn't working. But Grumpy Bird was never going to agree to it, ever, because they think that if it's not their decision or their idea, that it's wrong. It takes them a long time to come around to something they haven't thought of themselves first. All of this connects back to the last series that I made about Project Earth. It's funny how the puzzles fit together. So if you imagine Grumpy Bird being the head piece of the birds, and then like behind is a crowd, we called for one of the other bird pieces to step forward. And they were like, who, me? Which is something I'm actively helping them heal. And I was texting with the bird representative so that they could be involved. And they were a voice at the table. because there should not be a council. There should not be a hierarchy. There should not be a select group of voices to represent everybody. It just shouldn't happen. That was part of the healing we did as well. So I presented the idea to the bird and the cat of creating a balance of fire for all of us from source directly. And we agreed. And we put our right hands in, and then this DNA thing, swirl thing started to happen with a vortex and source. And if you look at the reptilians, they walk on land, they walk in water, and their skeletal structure is very similar to that of birds. And then it was time for the rest of the healing, which is every voice gets a turn at the table. Every voice getting a turn at the table simply means this: there is not always the same exact head representative for every species. Anytime there is a council that makes a decision for the people, it goes horribly fucking wrong. There's secrets. We can't tell the people about this because they'll get worried. We can't disclose this information because they'll get worried. Well, da-da-da-da-da. They keep everybody in the fucking dark, and it is bullshit. So we also made it a point at the table during this healing that everybody has a voice. Everybody can speak up. Everybody can take turns speaking. No more council. No more hierarchy. Not like this. You can speak up if you have a great idea, but your idea is not always the best one, and everybody needs a voice, period. So yeah, that was added in as well. I want you guys to think of it like this. Blue diamond, we're going to go Steven Universe. Blue diamond, white diamond, and yellow diamond, and then reptilians would be pink diamond. So even though they seemed little, they were not little. And also time, the way we perceive it, is not how it works. So even though it seemed like there was a long time before the reptilians were created, they were still created at the exact same time as everyone else. And that's a really hard concept to grasp. Like, I can't even begin to explain it. But this timeline was put there for us to be able to heal it and figure it out. And we did ripple the healing forward, and we are bringing everything to the light, and we did timeline heal everything. And again, it's just a piece of the puzzle, and it fits in, so I thought I'd share it. Also, the Horton Hears a Who reference, it's like all of us that have woken up are like the mayor, and also our oversouls are like Horton. We're just a speck of dust.